Daniel wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked at his scanner again. The readings made no sense. He had been surveying this stretch of the Sonoran Desert for 3 months, and he had never seen metallic signatures like these. Something big was buried under the sand about 200 meters ahead. He guided his hoverskiff toward the location and squinted against the harsh afternoon sun. The year was 2847, and Earth had changed in ways his great-grandparents could never have imagined. Alien species visited the planet regularly now. Spaceports dotted the coastlines. Trade ships came and went like cargo planes once did. But out here in the desert, nothing ever happened. That was why Daniel liked it. Quiet work for quiet pay. The scanner beeped louder as he approached. Daniel slowed the skiff and stepped off onto the hot sand. His boots sank slightly as he walked toward a large dune that seemed ordinary except for the chunk of twisted metal sticking out of it. He recognized the material immediately. It was not from Earth. The alloy had that strange purple tint that only came from off-world manufacturing. He climbed the dune carefully, his legs burning from the effort. When he reached the top, he stopped breathing for a moment. There was a body in the sand. Not a human body. This creature was enormous, easily 12 feet long, maybe more. Blue-gray scales covered the skin that he could see. 4 arms lay sprawled at strange angles, 2 on each side of the torso. The face was buried, but he could see the back of a massive head with ridges running down the skull. Daniel's first thought was that the creature was dead. His second thought was to call for help, but then the body moved. It was just a twitch at first. One of the 4 hands clenched slowly, fingers dragging through the sand. Then the massive torso expanded with a breath, and Daniel heard a low groaning sound that made the hair on his arms stand up. He should have run. Any sensible person would have run. But Daniel had never been very sensible when someone needed help. He slid down the dune toward the creature and started digging the sand away from its face. The skin was hot and dry, almost burning to the touch. Dehydration, Daniel thought. Whatever this being was, it needed water desperately. He cleared the sand from around the nose and mouth, revealing features that were almost human in arrangement but clearly alien in design. The lips were darker blue, cracked and bleeding. The nose was flat with 2 vertical slits, and when the eyes suddenly opened, Daniel found himself staring into amber pools with vertical pupils like a cat. The creature was female. He could tell now from the structure of the face and body. She was a giantess, wounded and dying in the desert, and she was looking at him with an expression he could not read. Then she spoke. "Your scent," she rasped in broken galactic common. "Your scent means death. Leave me, human, or my hunters will find you too." Daniel did not move. "Who is hunting you?" The giantess tried to laugh, but it came out as a cough. Sand and blood sprayed from her lips. "The hegemony, they will never stop. They can track my smell across star systems. Anyone near me dies, go now." Daniel looked at the wounds on her body. There were burns on her arms, deep cuts across her shoulders, and something that looked like a puncture wound in her side. She had been tortured, he realized. Someone had hurt her badly before she escaped to this desert. "I have water," he said, "and medical supplies on my skiff. I am not leaving you here to die." The amber eyes studied him with confusion. "You do not understand. My people are slaves, property. Helping me is a crime in hegemony space. They will kill you for this." "Good thing we are not in hegemony space," Daniel said. He stood up and jogged back to his skiff, returning with a canteen and his emergency medical kit. He knelt beside her and held the water to her cracked lips. She drank desperately, her 4 hands trembling as she tried to hold the canteen herself. Daniel had to refill it twice before she finally stopped. The whole time, she watched him like he was some kind of puzzle she could not solve. "Why?" she asked. "You do not know me, you owe me nothing. Why risk your life?" Daniel shrugged as he opened the medical kit. "Because you needed help, that is enough for me." The giantess stared at him for a long moment. Then she said something in a language he did not recognize. It sounded like a prayer. My name is Shan, she said finally. I was born in chains. I have never known freedom. If I die here today, at least I will die knowing that one person in this universe showed me kindness without wanting something in return. You are not going to die today, Daniel said firmly. He started cleaning the puncture wound in her side. The blood was purple and it smelled like copper and something. My name is Daniel. I am going to get you out of this desert and somewhere safe. Shan shook her head slowly. There is nowhere safe. They are already coming, the hunters. They tracked me from the ship I crashed. They will be here soon. As if the universe wanted to prove her right, Daniel's scanner suddenly screamed with a proximity alert. He grabbed the device and looked at the screen. 3 objects were entering the atmosphere at high speed, descending directly toward their location. Ships, small ones, fast ones. How many hunters? Daniel asked, his voice steady even though his heart was pounding. 3 in each ship, Shan said. 9 total. They are reptilian, professional slavers. They have neural whips and paralysis grenades. They will not kill me because I am valuable, but they will kill you without hesitation. Daniel looked at the massive Giantess, then at his tiny medical kit, then at the 3 dots on his scanner growing closer by the second. He was a geological surveyor with no combat training, no weapons, and no backup. But he had a hoverskiff. He had knowledge of the local terrain. And about 20 kilometers east, there was an abandoned mining complex where he had sheltered from sandstorms before. Can you move? He asked. Shan tried to sit up and gasped in pain. Barely. Barely is enough. Daniel grabbed her upper arm and pulled. Come on, we need to go right now. The giantess rose slowly, towering over him even while hunched in pain. She looked down at the small human trying to save her life, and something shifted in her amber eyes. Something like hope. You are either very brave or very foolish, she said. Daniel helped her limp toward the skiff. Probably both. Now move faster. We have about 4 minutes before those ships land. The hoverskiff was never designed to carry a 12-foot giantess. Daniel had to strap Shan across the cargo bed like an oversized piece of equipment while she gripped the rails with all 4 hands. The engine whined in protest as he pushed it to maximum speed across the desert floor. Behind them, 3 ships descended through the atmosphere, leaving trails of fire against the blue sky. They would land at the crash site first, Daniel knew. That gave him maybe 10 minutes before the hunters found their trail and followed. The mining complex, Daniel shouted over the wind. It has tunnels, underground. Can they track your scent through rock? Shan's voice was weak but clear. It will slow them down, not stop them. They have been hunting my kind for generations. They know every trick we have ever tried. Then we will have to try something new. The abandoned mining complex appeared on the horizon like a rusted skeleton. The main buildings had collapsed decades ago, but the entrance to the underground tunnels was still intact. Daniel had explored them once during a sandstorm, mapping the layout out of boredom. He never imagined that knowledge would save his life. He parked the skiff inside a collapsed warehouse where it would be hidden from aerial view. Then he helped Shan off the cargo bed and supported her weight as they moved toward the tunnel entrance. She was heavy, incredibly heavy, but she moved with grim determination despite her wounds. Tell me about Daniel said as they descended into the darkness. Everything you know. Shan leaned against the tunnel wall while Daniel activated his flashlight. They are cold-blooded, reptilian. Their eyesight is excellent in bright light but poor in darkness. They communicate through clicks and hisses. They work in packs of 3, always coordinated, always efficient. And the hegemony they serve. An empire of slavers, Shan said bitterly. They have conquered dozens of species. My people, they were warriors once, the greatest warriors in our sector of the galaxy, but the hegemony did not fight us fairly. They poisoned our worlds, killed our leaders, took our children as hostages. Within 3 generations, we were broken. Now they use us as weapons and laborers, living tools. Daniel led her deeper into the tunnels, choosing passages that sloped downward. The air grew cooler and damper. He could hear water dripping somewhere ahead. "You escaped," he said. "How?" "During a prisoner transfer between ships, there was a malfunction in the holding cells. I killed 2 guards and stole an escape pod." Shan paused, her amber eyes distant. "I did not have a destination. I just wanted to die free. When my pod entered this system, your planet was the closest option. I crashed in the desert and crawled as far as I could before my body failed me. And then I found you. And then you found me." She looked at him strangely. "Humans are barely known in hegemony space. Your world is considered primitive, insignificant. They call Earth a backwater planet full of soft creatures who cannot even survive in vacuum." Daniel smiled grimly. "Good, let them keep thinking that." They reached a large chamber where several tunnels connected. Old mining equipment sat rusted and forgotten in the corners. Daniel spotted what he was looking for: industrial storage containers with faded warning labels. Chemicals, ammonia compounds, sulfur, things that miners had used for processing ore centuries ago. "What are you doing?" Shan asked as Daniel began opening containers. "The track you by scent, so we are going to give them something else to smell." He found a breathing mask in an emergency supply locker and handed it to her. "Put this on, and stay here." Daniel worked quickly, mixing chemicals in proportions he remembered from college chemistry classes. The result was not pretty, but it was effective. Within minutes, he had created a potent mixture that smelled like burning rubber and rotten eggs combined. He poured it into several smaller containers and placed them at tunnel intersections throughout the complex. When he returned to Shan, she was watching him with amazement. "You made scent bombs." "Basic chemistry," Daniel said. "Nothing that we'll not figure out eventually, but it should buy us time and confuse their tracking." "Where did you learn to think like this?" Daniel sat down against the wall, suddenly exhausted. "I grew up on stories about human survival. Our ancestors crossed oceans on wooden ships. They climbed mountains without oxygen. They walked across frozen wastelands with nothing but determination. Humans are not the strongest or the fastest species in the galaxy, but we are very, very stubborn." Shan lowered herself to sit beside him, her massive form making the ground tremble slightly. "The hegemony believes that strength is everything, that the strong deserve to rule and the weak deserve to serve. They would never understand what you just did." "What do you mean?" "You used your mind instead of your muscles. You planned instead of fought. You helped a stranger instead of protecting yourself." She shook her head slowly. "In hegemony space, such behavior would be considered weakness, but I am beginning to think they are wrong about many things." A distant sound echoed through the tunnels. Footsteps, clicking sounds. They had arrived. Daniel rose silently and checked his only weapon, a mining pickaxe he had grabbed from the old equipment pile. It felt heavy and clumsy in his hands. He was not a fighter. He was a surveyor who spent his days looking at rocks and dirt. But Shan was too weak to defend herself, and that would take her back to a life of slavery and torment. Daniel could not allow that. He would not allow that. "Stay here," he whispered. "Stay quiet. I am going to draw them away from this chamber." Shan grabbed his arm with one of her massive hands. Her grip was gentle despite her strength. "Daniel, you cannot fight them alone. They will kill you." "Maybe," he admitted, "but I did not save you from the desert just to hand you over to slavers. Whatever happens, you stay free. Promise me." The amber eyes filled with an emotion he could not name. She released his arm slowly. "I promise." Daniel moved into the darkness, following the sounds of the approaching hunters. His heart pounded against his ribs. His hands were slick with sweat. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to hide, to let someone else handle this problem. But there was no one else. Just him. One ordinary human against professional alien hunters. He found a position behind a fallen support beam and waited. The clicking sounds grew louder. He saw lights moving in the tunnel ahead. Then the first came into view. The creature was smaller than Shan but still taller than Daniel. Its scales were dark green, almost black in the dim light. Yellow eyes with horizontal pupils scanned the tunnel. A neural whip hung from its belt, crackling with blue energy. The paused, sniffing the air. The scent bombs were working, confusing its senses. It clicked something to its companions somewhere behind it, then moved forward cautiously. Daniel waited until the hunter passed his hiding spot. Then he swung the pickaxe with every ounce of strength he possessed. The impact made a sound he would never forget. The collapsed without a cry, its skull crushed. Daniel stood over the body, trembling, his weapon dripping with dark blood. He had just killed a living being. The reality of it crashed over him like a wave. But there was no time for shock. 2 more hunters were coming, and now they knew something was wrong. Daniel grabbed the dead neural whip and ran deeper into the tunnels. The hunt had just begun. Daniel's hands would not stop shaking. He crouched in a narrow side passage, clutching the neural whip he had taken from the dead, and tried to control his breathing. The clicking sounds of the remaining hunters echoed through the tunnels, bouncing off walls and making it impossible to tell which direction they were coming from. He had killed before. Fish when he went fishing with his father as a boy, a rattlesnake once when it threatened his camp, but never a thinking, speaking being, never someone who had family and memories and a life of their own. There was a slaver, Daniel reminded himself. He would have dragged Shan back to chains and suffering without a moment of guilt, but the justification felt hollow in the darkness of the tunnels. A scraping sound nearby snapped him back to the present. Daniel pressed himself against the wall and held his breath. A shadow moved past the entrance to his passage, followed by another. 2 hunters, moving together now. They had learned from their companion's death. Daniel waited until the shadows disappeared, then crept back toward the main chamber where he had left Shan. He needed to check on her. He needed to know she was still safe. He found her standing, using the wall for support. Her wounds had stopped bleeding, but she was still dangerously weak. When she saw him, relief flooded her alien features. "You are alive," she breathed. "1 down," Daniel said quietly. 2 more in the tunnels. They are hunting together now. Shan straightened despite her pain. "Then we fight together. I will not hide while you face them alone." "You can barely stand." "I can stand well enough to kill." She flexed all 4 arms, and Daniel saw the muscles ripple beneath her scales. Even wounded, she was a terrifying sight. "My people were warriors, Daniel. The greatest warriors our sector had ever seen. The hegemony broke us, but they could not destroy what we are. Not completely." Daniel looked at the giantess, at the fire burning in her amber eyes, and nodded slowly. "Okay, together then, but we do this smart. No heroic charges." "Agreed." They moved through the tunnel side by side, an unlikely pair hunting their hunters. Shan's senses were sharper than Daniel's despite her condition. She could hear the clicking to each other from much farther away. She could smell their location through the chemical stink of Daniel's scent bombs. "There," she whispered, pointing down a passage to the left. "One of them is trying to circle behind us." Daniel gripped the neural whip, and the other. "Ahead, they are trying to trap us between them." A classic pincer movement. There were professional hunters who had done this countless times before, but they had never hunted humans before. They did not know what they were dealing with. "New plan," Daniel said. "We let them trap us." Shan looked at him like he had lost his mind. "Explain." "They expect us to run or hide. They expect prey behavior, so we give them the opposite." Daniel pointed to a wide section of tunnel ahead where the ceiling had partially collapsed, creating cover. "We wait there. Let them close in from both sides. When they attack, they will be focused on each other's positions to avoid friendly fire. That is when we strike." "That is either brilliant or insane." "Like I said before, probably both." They took position among the fallen rocks and waited. Daniel could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Minutes passed like hours. Then the clicking started again, closer now, from both directions. The first appeared at the far end of the tunnel, its yellow eyes gleaming in the darkness. It saw them and hissed in triumph, raising its weapon. At the same moment, Daniel heard movement behind them. The second hunter had arrived. They were surrounded, exactly as planned. The in front clicked rapidly, communicating with its partner. They began to advance slowly, weapons ready, confident in their numerical advantage. Daniel whispered to Shan, "When I move, you take the one behind us." "Understood." They drew closer, 10 meters, 8, 6. Daniel activated the neural whip and threw it at the hunter in front. Not to hit it, just to distract it. The flinched, dodging the crackling weapon, and in that moment Daniel grabbed a chunk of rubble and hurled it at the creature's face with all his strength. The rock struck the snout with a satisfying crack. The hunter screamed in pain and clutched its face, momentarily blinded. Behind Daniel, Shan exploded into motion. Even wounded, she was fast, faster than anything that size had a right to be. She caught the second before it could react, all four arms wrapping around the hunter like a cage. There was a horrible crunching sound. The went limp. Daniel did not wait. He charged the blinded hunter, grabbing his pickaxe from where he had dropped it earlier. The was recovering, reaching for its weapon, but Daniel was already there. He swung the pickaxe at the creature's knee, shattering the joint. The collapsed, screaming in a language Daniel did not understand. He raised the pickaxe for a final blow, but hesitated. The looked up at him with yellow eyes full of fear. In that moment, it was not a hunter or a slaver. It was just a living being facing death. Shan appeared beside him. Without hesitation, she reached down and snapped the neck. The creature's scream stopped instantly. "You showed mercy," she said quietly. "That is a luxury we cannot afford." Daniel stared at the body, then at his hands. "I know, I have never done this before." "And yet you did it anyway, for me, a stranger." Shan put one of her massive hands on his shoulder. "You are a remarkable being, Daniel." They stood in silence for a moment, surrounded by the bodies of their enemies. Then Daniel's emergency beacon began to beep. He had forgotten he was even wearing it. He pulled out the device and saw an incoming communication request. The ID tag showed it was from his supervisor at the mining company, Karen. "Daniel," her voice crackled through the speaker. "Daniel, where the hell are you? Your tracker went offline hours ago, and there are reports of unknown ships landing in your survey sector." Daniel took a deep breath. "Karen, I need you to listen carefully. Do not ask questions, just listen." He told her everything: the crashed pod, the wounded alien, the hegemony hunters. He told her about Shan and her people, about the slavery and the escape and the chase across the stars. He told her that Earth might be about to face a diplomatic incident unlike anything in human history. When he finished, there was a long silence. "Stay where you are," Karen finally said. "I am contacting Earth Defense Forces. They need to know about this. Daniel, what you did. I do not even have words. Just get us help, please." "Help is coming, I promise." The communication ended. Daniel slumped against the tunnel wall, exhaustion finally catching up to him. Shan sat beside him, her breathing ragged but steady. "Your people are coming," she said. "What will they do?" "I do not know," Daniel admitted. "Humans have never faced anything like this, but I know one thing." "What?" Daniel looked at the giantess who had become his unlikely friend over the past few hours. "We do not abandon people who need help. It is not who we are." Shan was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something in her own language, the same phrase she had spoken when he first gave her water in the desert. "What does that mean?" Daniel asked. "It is an old blessing. It means, may your courage be remembered among the stars." She closed her eyes. "I thought I would never speak those words again. I thought my people had forgotten how to hope, but you have reminded me." They waited in the darkness together, human and alien, while somewhere above them the machinery of nations began to turn. The rescue team arrived 3 hours later. Two armored transports descended from the sky and landed outside the mining complex, kicking up clouds of sand. Soldiers in Earth Defense Force uniforms poured out, weapons ready, forming a perimeter around the tunnel entrance. Daniel helped Shan to the surface, shielding his eyes against the sudden brightness. A medic rushed toward them, then stopped short when she saw the massive alien leaning on the human surveyor. "It is okay," Daniel said. "She is friendly. She needs medical attention." The medic recovered quickly and began assessing Shan's wounds while other soldiers secured the area. Daniel watched them work, feeling oddly disconnected from the chaos around him. 24 hours ago, he had been alone in the desert, checking mineral deposits. Now he was at the center of what might become an interstellar incident. An officer approached him, a woman with short gray hair and sharp eyes. Her uniform identified her as Colonel. "You are Daniel?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am." "You killed 2 hegemony hunters and helped kill a third. You sheltered an escaped alien slave and sent an emergency signal requesting military assistance." The colonel's expression was unreadable. "Did I summarize that correctly?" "Yes, ma'am." Colonel studied him for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. "Good work, son. Karen briefed us on the situation. You did something remarkable today." Daniel shook his head. "I just helped someone who needed it." "That is exactly what I mean." The colonel turned to look at Shan, who was being treated by a growing team of medics. "Do you understand what she is? Not just an escaped slave. She is the daughter of the last queen. The hegemony has been keeping her alive as a symbol of her people's defeat for decades. Her escape is not just personal, it is political." She mentioned something about that. "The hegemony is already sending ships. A corvette entered our solar system an hour ago. They are demanding we surrender Shan and the human who helped her." Colonel met Daniel's eyes. "They are demanding you, mister." Daniel felt cold despite the desert heat. What is Earth going to do? "That is above my pay grade, but Commander is handling it personally. He wants to speak with both of you before he makes any public statements." The colonel gestured toward one of the transports. "Come with me. We are taking you to a secure facility." The flight took less than an hour. Daniel and Shan were placed in a comfortable room that looked like a cross between a medical bay and a conference center. Doctors continued treating Shan's wounds while technicians set up communication equipment. "What is happening?" Shan asked quietly. "Your people are preparing for something." "I think they are preparing to make a decision," Daniel said. "About you, about us." "They should surrender me." Shan's voice was flat. "I have already caused enough trouble if the hegemony attacks Earth because of me." "Stop." Daniel moved to stand in front of her. "Do not talk like that. You escaped slavery. You fought for your freedom. That is not causing trouble. That is being brave." "Bravery that endangers innocent people is not bravery. It is selfishness." "And what about the millions of still in chains? What about them?" Daniel shook his head. "You are not just one escaped slave, Shan. You are a symbol. If Earth protects you, it sends a message to every oppressed species in the galaxy. If Earth surrenders you, it sends a different message. One that says freedom does not matter when it is inconvenient." Shan stared at him. "How do you see the universe so clearly? You are young. Your species has only been traveling among the stars for a few centuries. Yet you speak as if you understand things that have taken other races to learn." "Maybe we see clearly because we are new," Daniel said. "We have not had time to get cynical yet." The door opened and a man entered. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with the confident bearing of someone used to command. His uniform marked him as commander, head of Earth Defense Forces. "Mr. Shan," he nodded to each of them. "I apologize for the circumstances of our meeting. I wish we had more time for pleasantries, but the hegemony corvette is demanding a response. What are you going to tell them? Daniel asked. Commander pulled up a holographic display showing the hegemony ship in orbit. It was larger than any Earth vessel, bristling with weapons. That depends partly on you too, the commander said. The hegemony claims Shan is stolen property. They claim you, mister, are guilty of interfering with lawful slave retrieval. They are giving us 6 hours to comply with their demands or face military consequences. Shan stood, towering over both humans despite her wounds. I will surrender myself. I will not let Earth suffer for my sake. Sit down, Commander said firmly. No one is surrendering anyone. He turned back to the display. I did not come here to negotiate terms of surrender. I came here to ask if you two are willing to stand as witnesses. Witnesses, Daniel repeated. Earth is about to make a statement to the galaxy, a statement about who we are and what we believe. The hegemony thinks we are weak. They think we will fold under pressure like every other young species they have bullied. Commander smiled grimly. They are about to learn they were wrong. He pulled up another display showing feeds from news networks across Earth and throughout the galactic community. In 1 hour, I am going to broadcast our response to the hegemony demand. The entire galaxy will be watching. I want them to see you both. The survivor who escaped slavery. The ordinary human who risked everything to help her. That is the story I want to tell. What exactly are you going to say? Shan asked. Commander looked at her with steady eyes. I am going to tell them that Earth does not recognize slavery, that any being who reaches our planet seeking freedom will be granted sanctuary, and that the hegemony can take their demands and shove them straight into the nearest black hole. Daniel felt something swell in his chest, pride maybe, or hope. You are going to start a war. No, I am going to draw a line. The commander's voice was hard as steel. The hegemony has been pushing smaller species around for centuries. Nobody has ever pushed back, until now. They will attack, Shan said. The hegemony does not accept defiance. They will bombard your planet to make an example. They can try. Commander brought up a new display, this one showing schematics that made Daniel's jaw drop. Planetary shield generators, defense platforms hidden in the asteroid belt, a fleet of ships that officially did not exist. Humanity learned a long time ago that the galaxy is not always friendly. We have been preparing for this moment since first contact. Shan studied the displays with wide eyes. Your species was supposed to be primitive. We let them think that, Commander smiled. It is amazing what you can accomplish when nobody considers you a threat. So, are you both willing to stand with us when I make this announcement? It will put targets on your backs forever. The hegemony will never forget or forgive. Daniel looked at Shan. She looked back at him. Neither of them needed to speak. We are with you, Daniel said. Whatever comes next. Commander nodded. Then let us show the galaxy what humanity is made of. The broadcast went out across every channel, every frequency, every network in the known galaxy. Trillions of beings stopped what they were doing to watch. On 100,000 worlds, creatures of every shape and size gathered around screens to see what the primitive humans would do. Commander stood at a podium with the Earth flag behind him. To his left stood Daniel, still wearing his dusty surveyor clothes. To his right stood Shan, the giantess who had survived slavery and crossed the stars to find freedom. People of Earth, citizens of the galactic community, spoke calmly, his voice carrying the weight of history. Yesterday, a being named Shan crashed on our planet. She had escaped from slavery under the hegemony of scales. She was wounded, dying, and alone. A human surveyor named Daniel found her and saved her life. Pause to let his words sink in. The hegemony has demanded that we surrender Shan to their custody. They have threatened military action if we refuse. They believe we will submit because we are young and weak and afraid. Another pause. They are wrong. The commander's voice hardened. Earth does not recognize the institution of slavery. We never have. We never will. Any being who reaches our planet seeking freedom will be granted sanctuary under human protection. This is not a political position. It is a moral truth that we hold to be self-evident. Around the galaxy, reactions varied. Some species cheered, others watched in stunned silence. The hegemony representatives at various diplomatic stations snarled and hissed with fury. To the hegemony, I say this. Look directly into the camera. Take your threats elsewhere. Take your chains and your neural whips and your slave ships far from our world, because Earth will never bow to slavers. Not today, not ever. The broadcast ended. For a moment, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Then the hegemony corvette opened fire. Plasma cannons erupted from the ship in orbit, sending bolts of superheated energy screaming toward Earth. The first volley targeted the desert region where Daniel had found Shan, intended as a message, a demonstration of power. The plasma bolt struck something invisible about 50 kilometers above the surface. Energy crackled and dispersed across a shimmering barrier that suddenly became visible. A planetary shield, covering the entire planet in protective energy. The hegemony commander stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The backwater humans were not supposed to have shield technology. They were not supposed to have anything. All ships launch, Commander ordered calmly. From hidden bases around the solar system, the human fleet emerged. 20 ships that the galaxy had never seen, built in secret over decades, crewed by men and women who had trained for exactly this moment. They were smaller than the hegemony corvette, but they moved with coordinated precision that spoke of years of preparation. The battle was brief but intense. Human ships swarmed the corvette like wasps around a bear. Their weapons were unconventional, designed to exploit weaknesses that human scientists had identified in hegemony technology through years of careful observation. Shields flickered and failed. Engines sputtered and died. Within 20 minutes, the hegemony corvette was drifting helplessly in space, its weapons disabled, its hull breached in a dozen places. Commander opened a communication channel to the enemy ship. Hegemony vessel, you are disabled and outnumbered. Surrender your ship and crew, or we will finish what we started. There was a long silence. Then, grudgingly, the hegemony commander transmitted his surrender. The galactic community watched in amazement as human ships surrounded and captured the corvette. The primitive backwater species had just defeated a hegemony warship. The implications rippled through every civilization in known space. Daniel watched the battle from the command center, feeling like he was dreaming. Beside him, Shan stood tall, her wounds bandaged but healing. Tears streamed down her scaled face. "I never thought I would see this," she whispered. "I never thought anyone would stand against them." "Earth has been preparing for a long time," Daniel said. "We always knew we might have to fight for our freedom someday. We just did not know it would be for someone else's freedom too." In the hours that followed, Shan made her own broadcast. She spoke in galactic common so every species could understand. She told her story, from her birth in chains to her escape to her rescue by an ordinary human in the desert. She told the galaxy about Daniel, who had risked everything to help a stranger. Then she addressed her own people, the scattered throughout hegemony space in chains and cages. "My brothers and sisters, my family, I thought our spirit was broken forever. I thought we had forgotten how to hope, but I was wrong. Hope lives. It lives in the hearts of those who refuse to accept injustice. It lives in the hands that reach out to lift the fallen. It lives in the courage of ordinary beings who choose to do what is right even when it is dangerous." Her voice strengthened. "The humans have shown us what courage looks like. They have shown the galaxy that slavery is not inevitable, that tyranny can be challenged, that freedom is worth fighting for. Now it is our turn to remember who we were, who we can be again." Across the galaxy, enslaved heard her words. Some wept, some laughed, some began to plan. 3 days later, Daniel stood in the Arizona desert, looking at the spot where he had found Shan half buried in the sand. So much had changed since then. Earth was no longer anonymous. Humanity was no longer underestimated. And he, Daniel, was somehow famous across the stars. Shan approached him, her footsteps making the ground tremble slightly. She had recovered remarkably fast. Her species was built for endurance, she had explained. Surviving impossible conditions was what they did best. I have been offered asylum on Earth, she said. Your government wants me to serve as an ambassador between our species, a symbol of the alliance to come. What did you say? I said yes. She stood beside him, towering over him as she had since the moment they met. But I wanted to speak with you first, to thank you properly. Daniel shook his head. You do not have to thank me. I just did what anyone would do. No, Shan's voice was firm. That is not true. Most beings would have walked away. Most beings would have chosen safety over sacrifice. You chose differently. That choice changed everything. It changed me. It changed your world. It changed the galaxy. She reached into a pouch at her side and something small and glittering. A crystal pendant on a silver chain. This belonged to my mother, the last queen of the. It is the only thing I have from my people's free days. She held it out to Daniel. I want you to have it. I cannot accept that. It is too important. That is exactly why you should have it. Shan pressed the pendant into his hands. You carry our hope now, Daniel. You prove that even the smallest acts of kindness can shake the foundations of empires. My people will never forget that. I will never forget that. Daniel looked at the pendant, then at the giantess who had become his friend. What happens now? Shan gazed toward the horizon where the sun was setting, painting the desert in shades of gold and red. Now we build something new. The hegemony will not fall overnight. There will be more battles, more struggles, more sacrifices. But for the first time in generations, my people have hope. Earth gave us that. She placed one of her massive hands on his shoulder. Your scent no longer means death, Daniel. It means something else now. What? She smiled, a strange expression on her alien features but unmistakably genuine. It means freedom. They stood together in the fading light, human and alien, watching the stars begin to appear overhead. Somewhere among those distant lights, the galaxy was changing. Species who had lived in fear for centuries were beginning to whisper a new word. A word that meant sanctuary. A word that meant hope. Earth. And it had all started with one ordinary man who refused to walk away from someone in need.